Over the city's ripped back sky, and everything looks good tonight. Singing la 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 la. Get into the car, we'll be the passenger. We'll ride through the city tonight. See the city's ripped back sides. We'll see the bright and hollow sky. We'll see the stars that shine so bright. The sky was made for us tonight. Oh, the passenger, how he rides. Oh, the passenger, he rides and he rides. He looks through his window. What does he see? He sees a silent hollow sky. He sees the stars come out tonight. He sees the city's ripped back sides. He sees a winding ocean drive. And everything was made for you and me. All of it was made for you and me. 'Cause it just belongs to you and me. So let's take a ride and see what's mine. Singing la 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 la. Oh, the passenger, he rides and he rides. He sees things from under glass. He looks through his window's eye. He sees the things he knows are his. He sees a bright and hollow sky. He sees a city asleep at night. He sees the stars are out tonight. And all of it is yours and mine. And all of it is yours and mine. So let's take a ride and ride and ride. Singing la 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 la. Singing la 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 la. Passenger, and I ride and I ride. I ride through the city's backside. I see the stars come out of the sky. Yeah, the bright and hollow sky. You know it looks so good tonight. I am the passenger. I stay under glass. I look through my window so bright. I see the stars come out tonight. I see the bright and hollow sky. Over the city's ripped back sky. And everything looks good tonight. Singing la 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 la
2, 3, 4, 5. Get a quick sound check, and we are in business. So, this is a last-minute impromptu live stream, and somebody had pointed out, I had meant to mention an earlier video, it just kind of got sidetracked. You guys are probably aware that in the I don't have any slides prepared, but I did have time to get some cough medicine, so in a holiday season class. So the 3-foot Enterprise has been found. Now, for some of you already know what that means. Some of you actually had already told me. I had seen from Trek World. I pasted the link in the comments in the description below. But the there were a couple of models made. The big 11-foot model, which is in the Smithsonian, and the 3-foot Enterprise, which has actually arguably had more screen time in a lot of ways than the big model, and it was on Roddenberry's desk on a gooseneck stand for years, and apparently sometime during one of the moves or something, it went walkabout. Roddenberry actually, this guy gets into it in his video, but he'd actually written a letter asking the studio, to return it if they found it or whatever. There was some debate about what happened to it, and it's been a mystery for 30-something years, 40 years, and apparently it just surfaced. And I believe it ended up on Evil Bay. And, of course, the Roddenberry Foundation, or his estate, jumped on it, told the people, hey, that's stolen property, and you need to give it back, which apparently they have, I think they agreed to do. I'm not really sure, but he gets into it in the article. So the infamous 3-foot Enterprise, and it's in rough shape. It's definitely in rough shape. But it has been found, and that's kind of big news in prop world. And it's been repaired a few times. It's looking pretty rough, but at least they found it, and that's not nothing, as Malcolm Reynolds would say. So Geek World is all excited that the Enterprise is coming home to Roddenberry's estate, and this is the one he had on his desk for years, and so. Anyway, I'm going to switch my glasses here so I can read the comments section. The Nerd World's all excited tonight. Okay, the schedule's busy, but you have a D-Day build for this June. Ooh, I didn't think about that. Anything with invasion stripes, that's not a bad idea. All right, let's look at the schedule. I got it right here. Open this up. We can always add one. Let's see. Actually, we have a dream car build in June. I could bump that down and make it a D-Day build. Yeah. Let the two. Let's do that. Let's go D-Day build. Do June 6th. We'll make it June 5th so I can have it up June 6th. Oops. And we'll make the dream car build July. Because I know you guys can build a car real quick. So, let me save that. And copy. And let me paste this to the alright, YouTube live. You might hear me in the background. Okay, edit video. And I'm about to post the bid schedule here, paste, or the build schedule, save. All right, there we go. Beautiful. Close that, close that. Yeah, I'm starting to learn my way around this program a little bit. And so, I just closed it, but so I don't know how many of you guys saw today's video. Imagine, let's see, how many views does it have? Give me some idea. I did zero prep for this. I was literally putting it all together as you were, as I had the intro running. And we've had, 844 views. That's not bad. So a lot of you guys had some interesting ideas for aircraft models that pretty much out of the box go on the set of Star Wars. Switch glasses again. And, hey Trey, of course, we're going to have to tell Fran to build a new model because he's got so many models that would automatically... Let's build new models for this guy. Fran's got enough of those kits, he could probably do a D-Day invasion diorama with just what he has already on the shelf. I got a comment here from Celebrating Aviation with Milk. Nice. I was going to read some of the comments on the ideas that you guys had for okay, Celebrating Aviation with Mick 9782. Okay, I don't know if Mike Michat's got another email or account or if that's something else, but anyway, we're going to talk about the models out of the box that you could build and put right on a Star Wars set. Lemur Crazy said the Chronoplon, that's a good one. I thought it'd be easy to turn a Dark Star Destroyer into Dark Star. That actually would work. Turn Donnelly Cartoons, turn the Tiny Lindbergh 163 Comet to a V-tailed spaceship. I did a spaceship with a MiG-21 by cutting off the wings and folding them up and then grabbing the horizontal stabilizers and putting them down. And this is before Star Wars, so it kind of had a long fuselage TIE fighter look. And it just about anything Russian would work. So let's see, Wild Dad actually hacked up a series of F-15s for a sci-fi film for this purpose. And then the Chronoplon again. Didn't they chrome plate the SR-71 in the prequels? You know, that thing from Naboo, that ship from Naboo, one of them very much like a B-2 bomber, and one of them very much like that SR-71. That was clearly the inspiration for them. And yeah, they had that chrome look to them. Which movie featured... which Elvis movie featured a cameo of the Delta Dagger? Gosh, I feel like I should know that one. The ME-163 comment. Oh, thanks, Paul. Easy, the Tester Soviet stealth fighter named Ferrite. Yep, that's a good one. And F-19 Ghost Rider. The 37 Ferret. I'm building res. Okay, that I just started a kit which fit perfectly in Star Wars. Might even have the really inspired the move the French Trident. Yep, that's true. I was too young to appreciate the Sol F-107 at the Air Force Museum. Yeah. Personally, as you guys know, I already put it in the comment section, I'm going with the 108 Rapier, but that's just one of many. And, you know, that says something a lot about the... not the aesthetic, but the design technology of the Cold War. All of the jets had a very sci-fi look. I made another spaceship out of an F-8 Cutlass, and the only thing I did was put the horizontal stabilizers on, the vertical fins on upside down. That's where they stuck down, and it looked awesome. There's just so much you can do with the Century series and the Cold War. There's so many cool jets out there. It doesn't take much to modify them. I saw an SR-71 that a guy had kit bashed into a space plane. It was flawless work. And it was clearly based on the SR-71. He'd made a lot of changes to it. It was really a convincing looking model. But what I would like to have, the only thing he didn't do that I would like to have seen is to put a third seat in the back, like a B-58 style. But, let me see. I'm going to have to switch glasses again so I can read the iPad. 163 B-49. Hey, Nathan. Yeah, Chronoplon. Star Wars had a lot of real-world inspiration for a lot of the stuff they did, but imagine most of you guys know the original X-Wing was actually made from a car model, from a dragster. And if you've ever seen that documentary, The Toys That Made Us, and man, the Star Wars franchise and the toy contract saved Kenner, the toy company. But they took a dragster body, you know, and put the little tiny skinny X-Wings on it, and the plan for them was born. I'm not sure where they got the idea for the TIE Fighter, but the Star Wars was blessed with some very, very clever designs. And I was just having this chat I was over at my sister's house for dinner, and our friend Fernando was over, and I was talking to him about how I think the original Star Wars, The New Hope, was probably the best standalone movie of any of them, although there were a lot of good ones in there and some sadly disappointing ones. But the one of the things that Star Wars really had going for it, it's important in science fiction, was cool looking ships. The Y-Wings, the X-Wings, the TIE Fighters. I thought the Millennium Falcon was a little odd, but like, you know, it grows on you until you love it. And of course the Star Destroyers. And then we're talking about that opening scene where, you know, you see the ship from Alderaan, Leia's ship, goes sailing by, and you think it's big until that Star Destroyer just covers the whole screen. Then you think you're seeing the rear end of it, and you're like, oh no, that's just the hangar bay. And there's even more of it, and like, holy crap. And the movie had to live up to that impressive first shot, and it did. But the wedge-shaped Star Destroyer was, although it had a lot of greeblies on it, the basic design was very simple, but it has an eye appeal. And a lot of the, you know, you could see the X-Wing, you know, on the ramp at Muroc or Edwards, or the Y-Wing. It just had that X-plane look to it, and they just look cool. And I think if I had the skills to do it, maybe with a model or maybe with CGI, I would just reshoot the entire Death Star attack, but it would all be like model airplanes in the 50s, 60s, 70s, you know, rapiers and cutlasses and all the cool looking jets we were talking about, you know, and have those be the aircraft instead of and it would work just as well. And I think that, yeah, well, the Natter is what I would shoot at the exhaust portal. But in fact, you could have like the Henschel or something, or one of the jets, maybe that Arado 6-engine Arado bomber come in, the bay opens up, and like 4 man Natters fired off, and you can start flying down the trench into the you know, or Okas, you know, heading for suicide runs on the exhaust port, you know. And let's see, what we use as TIE fighters. Oh, the little Focke-Wulf T-tail job would replace the TIE fighters. They'd go chasing after them. Because we're all a bunch of kids, that's why. Was almost a Dam Buster trench run. Well, that was a Sopwith. Okay. We're in space, why not? But it's funny you mention that, because I'm sure a lot of you guys already know that the trench run is basically based on the Dam Busters. And a couple of you can go out and see what they call shreds, where a couple of people have either taken the Dam Busters movie. I actually did one myself. They took the Dam Busters movie and put the sound from the Death Star attack. They did it the other way around, the Death Star attack with the audio track from the Dam Busters. They had to do a little editing, but it worked perfectly because that's what it was based on. And I did the attack on Scarif with one of the Battle of Britain dogfights, and it worked great. And whoa, honey was out there meowing in the hallway. Yeah, backup bomb cluster. There you go. That's the ticket. But imagination's the limit. And at some point, we might do a build where, okay, I want a Star Wars diorama, but with a real airplane, or, you know, a kit model of a real or proposed aircraft. So you can, you know, make your Mos Eisley with your, F-104 parked out back or something. We'll see. And, or maybe just have you guys shoot them some photos in front of green cloth or something. I can edit them into some kind of Star Wars home movie or something. I was studying all day. Actually, I can't show you the iPad because I'm reading the messages on it, but I got through the first couple of lessons for the upcoming upgrade, and it was... Get my little astronaut here. There we go. Whee! Yeah, there's too much light in here. I'll turn that. See if we can get some ghostly images. Think I can kill the star field. Don't tell the ghost ghost stories. Ugh. Anywho, yeah, that's not working. Oh, now you can see it back there. Ooh, the orbs in space. Ah, there we go. Okay, I'm trying to turn the star field off. There we go. Give it a ghostly appearance. Oh, my laser surgery. By the way, guys, Barry, I don't think you mind me sharing this. I had lunch with Barry after Model Palooza, and he served on a Knox class frigate, which is an interesting ship. I built a model one for somebody, and I was surprised to learn, like we mentioned, I'm sure you guys know, an F-35 got its first kill. An Israeli one shot down a Houthi cruise missile. Well, apparently the USS Carney, which is I believe it is an early Burke class, has shot down about 20 of them. And I didn't realize that our guys were getting quite as much trigger time over there as they are. So at some point we might have to do another ship build or something in honor of these guys out there that was, the guys out there doing a great job shooting down bad guy drones. There we go, nice and spooky. What was the sci-fi movie that had the Corsair winged space fighter? Not sure. I do know there was one. Was it Space Command, where they basically used the nose and cockpit section of old Bach British Electric Lightnings, and that's the one where the bad guys are like cat people or something like that. It was from a video game, and also served aboard. Oh, really? Okay, so we got two guys that served aboard Knox class ships. That was the first ship you were on the Perry. Okay. I know we built quite a few of them. 1075, the Trip. And the Knox class ships are pretty interesting. I think it was an attempt to make what you might call an economy. Well, depending on when you were in, they were the destroyer escorts or frigates, because the Navy changed the designation. You can't find a kit of one. You can find an Oliver Hazard Perry kit, but the only kit I was able to find was a resin one from White Ensign Models. It's an excellent kit. It's the first one I ever did photo etch on. You have to, because unlike the Arizona, you're not replacing stuff with better looking photo etch. The photo etch makes up the parts. If you don't use the photo etch, you won't have any railings, or a lot of stuff will be missing. FF sailors. But the what's it called? Destroyers, Greyhounds of the Sea. And I've flown with a lot of Navy guys. A lot of them were helo pilots and were on various sprue cans of their Spruance class. And I guess pretty much all the sprue cans are gone now. It's mostly Harley Burke. But for a long time, even though I built models and stuff, I didn't know the difference between a destroyer escort, a cruiser. And the lines on those blur, because like in World War II, you had the destroyer escort, usually 3-inch guns, 3 torpedoes, some anti-aircraft stuff, and they were literally smaller than regular destroyers and were designed for escort duties. And they were pretty quick. They had a lot of sub-hunting capability, limited anti-aircraft. Then you had your regular destroyer, which was bigger, faster, usually 5-inch guns like a Fletcher, and 5 torpedoes or 10 torpedoes. Then, of course, you have the light cruisers, which are, as one sailor put it, just a gussied up destroyer, 7-inch, 6-inch, 7-inch guns. Then you got your cruisers, then your heavy cruisers, which, like the 9-inch guns. Then you get your battle wagons. And all these ships had a very distinct class and capability, and a lot of times roles. And then, ships modernize, weapon systems get a lot more advanced. And then whether something, when the Spruance class came out, they kind of were sticking. The Oliver Hazard Perry, I think, was the last actual frigate. I don't think the U.S. Navy has any frigates anymore. And they were basically destroyer escorts, renamed frigates, reclassified. But with all the modern weapons and the missile systems, you're more described by your job than your hull size. And then when the sprue cans came out, I guess cruiser destroyers, they were all built on the same basic hull, and now it's the Harley Burks. So they might be optimized for different missions and different weapon systems, but same basic hull, which makes sense. It's just like how many vehicles did we put on the M4 chassis, or the Germans on the Panzer Mark IV chassis, or taking an extremely well-made, reliable vessel and just putting different mission modules in it. So the idea of cruiser, frigate, destroyer, that stuff's all gotten so blurred these days. And of course the Navy has its entire own alphabet, FFG, FF, if they're nuclears, like the carriers, they got the CVN on CV for carrier. And it just, there's so many classes of ship and everything, they keep changing. So the only reason I know anything about this is from building models. I know some of you guys who are in the Navy. And we have somebody who probably pretty soon be a family member who just got out of the Navy. He spent a bunch of time on, I think, an Arleigh Burke. And my hat's off to the destroyer men. If you ever seen that movie about the Bonhomme Richard the Destroyer, the one with the movie with, what's his name? He's played a gangster, not Cagney, but from Double Indemnity. God, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. You can see Edward G. Robinson. He plays a chief petty officer, and he keeps calling it the Bonhomme Richard. And he says, so remember, men, when you walk down the street, walk with a swagger, you're destroyer men. And I think there's something to be said for that, because remember, everywhere those big ships go, the destroyers got to go right with them, no matter how bad the seas. And I love the Kane Mutiny, where they're talking about, how the destroyer, the DMS, the destroyer minesweeper, right? It's like, they're not exactly the most comfortable riding ships on Earth. But anyway, Bogart was a Kane Mutiny. I was thinking Everett G. Robinson. I can't remember the name of the movie, but he's an old destroyer man on the Bonhomme Richard. But they had, because I remember talking to a lot of guys I know who served on carriers. I know a lot of guys who served on carriers. And the Navy guys know more about this than I do, obviously. But apparently, just like in the Army and in the Air Force, there are different navies. There's a submarine navy, there's the SWO navy, surface warfare. But there's the carrier guys, and then there's the destroyer guys. And each of these has a very different vibe to them. And whereas a carrier might ride out, certain kind of weather reasonably comfortably because it's so bloody big, or even a merchant ship, one of the big Navy maritime ships. But destroyers are out there bobbing like corks. And it takes a special kind of people to be able to put up with that. And then, of course, the submariners or submariners who are cooped up underwater for months at a time. Oh, God, I cannot imagine what that's got to be like. The Bedford incident. Yeah, it was old Madigan. What was his name? Played the cop Madigan in the movie, and then in the mystery movie series, it was Richard Widmark, Sidney Poitier. And my brother never really liked that movie. He was like, no idiot's gonna launch a nuke, because, only young James MacArthur, and the movie's called Destroyer. Okay, that's it. All right. And it's funny. I learned a lot about this from the old black and white wartime movies. There was one that took place on a Flower class corvette. I think it was a British-made movie. They're talking about Aztec. And it might have been called Corvette, but the whole movie is just about the crew of a Corvette trying to protect a convoy. I saw the movie. Finally got to see the Tom Hanks movie, Greyhound. Now, don't get me wrong. I like the movie. It's a lot of fun. But any military buff's going to watch that movie, and he's going to know a lot of things are wrong. First off, there is no way on God's green earth that a German U-boat commander could or would hack into a destroyer's public address system. It's like, man, up to that point, you guys are doing all right. But it was a good, exciting movie. And I do know they did actually have some good running gunfights, like the one you saw where the subs would get in too close for the guns to depress. That was actually a not unheard of tactic. And there were times there were gunfights, and there's that famous incident where I think the destroyer ran up on top of the sub, and they're like throwing Coke bottles and stuff and using pistols to shoot at the Germans. And it was stranger than fiction. And kind of Enemy Below style. And that was actually a pretty good movie. You know, Robert Mitchum and a very young Doug McClure. The Enemy Below. In fact, it's considered a classic, and they actually made the episode in Star Trek. It was Balance of Terror, I think, was based on that because Roddenberry always wanted to make like a submarine movie. And yeah, Few Fires One, I'll fire one. The Sand Pebbles. Yeah, it's funny you should mention the Sand Pebbles. Some people, like old sailors of the period who'd seen that movie when it came out, said that Steve McQueen was the most convincing portrayal of a sailor of that period. And it helped that McQueen had been a Marine, so he'd been in the military. But they said just the way he carried himself, you know, the way he swagged, then walked down the street, he had the walk, you know, of a turn of the century Navy man, you know, enlisted sailor. And it definitely looked the part. And his weapons handling was extremely good because McQueen had a lot of experience in the Corps and other places with firearms. And he having fired O3s and BARs and stuff like that, I can tell you his gun handling was pretty good. They even had the correct version of the BAR, the early one with the long barrel on it, which was period correct. And the look and vibe of it, the fact that it was an old Spanish boat that they had acquired, that whole movie was very interesting. It was very well done. And, you know, that's back when they really researched those kinds of movies, but I think that also had a little bit to do with a lot of people who had served were still around. So not only they knew they had to do a good job, or the old veterans would pick it apart, but also you just had the expertise around. Some of the vessels were still around. What's the topic? Oh, we're just blabbing about 60s and 70s well-made war movies right now, or military movies, I should say. They're not all war movies. Some of them, like when old Jack Webb did the drill, the DI, the drill where he plays the Marine drill instructor. You know, that's not really a war movie. That's just a military movie. But some of the best ones done, though, it helps that a lot of people that generation had been in the service. And one of the people who was the most convincing, because not only because he'd been a Marine and in combat as a Marine, in fact, he was wounded, was Lee Marvin. And a lot of it had to do with the fact that Marvin had handled all the... You watch him in a movie like The Professionals when he's loading, at the beginning when he's loading the 30 cal and demonstrating it, and he just loads it, and taps the trigger and bar ups. He did it so naturally. And they said the episode that he was on in the TV show Combat, that when he was on set, the whole time he'd sit there talking to the guys, he'd be holding his M1 with one finger, perfectly balanced. Well, no wonder he carried one for a long time. You know, his weapons handling was extremely believable because he knew exactly what he's doing. He handled it like a real GI. The whole time he's telling these stories, you know, about fighting in the Pacific, he's just sitting there, you know, and the whole time his rifle's perfectly balanced on one finger. All the actors are trying to, you know, couldn't get it. And I was like, well, you know, the guy slept with a rifle for 2 years. I think he, you know, learned how to hold it properly. Well, Early Ermey, yeah, of course, because he was a Marine drill. Ermey had actually, I think he did 16 years in the Corps, and he actually got a medical discharge. I think he'd hurt his back, but he was a career Marine. They later gave him an honorary promotion, so he'd be a real gunny sergeant. Attack, 1956, yeah. Yeah, I actually did a video a long time ago about, I think it was people, I think it might have just been for the 1975 or 76 movie Midway, but it was actors who had actually served. And Henry Fonda was a Navy officer. Glenn Ford had been a sergeant in the Marine Corps and then officer in the Navy, and went on to become a captain in the Navy, full captain. I mean, the equivalent of a full colonel. Jimmy Stewart, as well known, went on to be a brigadier general. He actually flew combat missions and bombers in World War II as a SAC guy, Strategic Air Command. Robert Mitchum was in the Army very briefly, but I think less than a year before he was discharged. Pretty much most of Charlton Heston had been in the Air Corps during the war, and then I think he still had the old .45 automatic they issued him. Obviously, Audie Murphy, no brainer. Pretty much Steve McQueen, pretty much most of those guys had been in it some time. George Kennedy I think he'd been in the Army like 16 years when he got out to the acting bug bit. And yeah, Boys and Company. See that? I think that was Arlie Ermey's first movie. I think he played the drill on that one. Battleground. Yeah, Battleground. Who else was it? Was I think Jock Mahoney was a fighter pilot. There were a bunch of the guys, but you know, they were of the World War II generation, so a lot of them had served. Reagan had served, but of course he was making movies in the Army in Culver City. But he was in uniform. Jerry Ford was in the. Well, I'm sorry, getting to politicians now. Yeah, it was. Charles Bronson had been in the Air Corps, and Leonard Nimoy had been in the Army, but I think he served in peacetime. Jimmy Doohan had been in the Canadian Army, and I think he became a like the equivalent of an artillery spotter. He was an artillery officer. That's where he lost a finger, and I believe he wound up flying forward spotting aircraft after that. And one article I read said they labeled him as the craziest pilot in the Canadian Army because he would go in and buzz the enemy. But you never know how much of that's just PR hype. But Decision for Dawn, Richard Basehart, and Oscar Werner. Okay. One of my favorites is the Blue Max. And I also, today was watching just some snippets from two movies about the same event, the Wannsee Conference. The more recent one, Conspiracy, and the old one that was made in the 80s, where they actually speak in German, and you have to read the subtitles. Both of them are wonderfully done, but God, you watch a movie like that and you realize what our grandparents were fighting for. Oh, Lord. Probably one of the worst movies I saw, World War II movies I saw, and I don't say this lightly because it was important, but I don't think it's been done justice, was the Battle of the Bulge. And not just because of the, German Pattons and the American Chaffies. It's just the whole movie just didn't really tell the story of what happened. They had a few, like the Malmedy Massacre and some things that were important to point out. But the movie itself, that's just not what happened. And Spain isn't Germany, and the hillsides of Spain do not look like the forests of Germany. And aside from countless technical issues, and the O1 bird dog did not exist yet. And anyway, and there's been no shortage of bad ones. And the Big Red One is actually a true story, but it's not the greatest movie. But Lee Marvin. I was just talking about that movie earlier this evening because when we were talking about Star Wars, I was telling Fernando that the Mark Hamill does this movie that became just part of the world lexicon. I mean, think about how many phrases came out of that movie. Everything from the Death Star to use the Force. And so Mark Hamill is the lead in this just trend-setting franchise-starting movie. But he was kind of a victim of his own success because the next thing he's doing, he's playing one of the infantry privates in the Big Red One. I'm like, really? You go from lead of the biggest movie of the last decade to sixth billing in a war film, and that's Hollywood. But only Lee Marvin could pull off being a buck sergeant in the First World War and look about the same and make it work as a buck sergeant in the Second World War. Or as we should probably call it, the Great War and the World War Phase 2, Phase 1 and Phase 2. There's an old saying that peace is just the period between wars where everybody sits around reloading, and no more honest description is of that than First and Second World Wars. And Bridge over the River Kwai, true classic. Yeah, I wasn't thrilled with Force 10 from Navarone, but the one thing it did that was kind of interesting, I think they were supposed to in Yugoslavia, is it showed a theater of war that doesn't get much attention. Everybody wants to either do World War I movies, I want to do the Western Front, which I understand, And in World War II movies, it's either fighting the Japanese in the Pacific or fighting the Germans in Europe. That's 90% of them. And then you get ones like Von Ryan's Express, where at least they show the Italians were in the war. I don't think I ever saw the story of G.I. Joe. Cross of Iron was interesting. So was one of my guilty pleasures for war movies concerned is the Misfit Brigade, also known as Wheels of Terror, which is one of Sven Hassel's books. And of course, they got to use Russian equipment because they filmed it in like Yugoslavia, but at least it had a pretty authentic look. It was something different. And Cross of Iron, Steiner! And the Cross of Iron was there. I would call it a great movie, but it was different. It's always nice to see it from other perspectives. Desert Fox is pretty good. The Purple Plane. Now, there's one people forget about, and what I was like, the Purple Plane? And then I said, oh, wait a minute, it's got mosquitoes. Okay, I'll watch it. And one of the things they did in that movie was true, was that it shows that they could lay somebody down in the Bombay of mosquito and transport him that way. And the guy's, his mask fails, so he passes out. Battle never till he goes slow. Okay. Yes, Hassel is an interesting author, although most people go, yeah, I think he's making all this up because at one point he thought he was fighting U.S. Marines, and of course they didn't fight there. But I think he was actually Swiss or something, got hauled into the German army. I don't know if he volunteered, but people forget that the SS had their penal battalions, and they may have worn the black uniforms with the collar bar with the runes, but they were actually a penal battalion. They weren't goosed up in Nazis. They were guys that were chucked in those battalions to be used as cannon fodder. And Where Eagles Dare. A lot of people think that's a really great movie, and I'm like, I like Where Eagles Dare. It's a fun movie, but I don't think the OSS would issue bundled sticks of dynamite with stopwatches on them. But okay, whatever. I can go with that. With the convenient little built-in spring-loaded tripwire. Like, I don't know if they ever made bombs like that, but they bloody well should have. Graf Spee. I like the Battle of the Platte River. And by the way, two of those ships, I think it was Ajax and Achilles, I'm probably off on that, were the actual ones that were involved in the battle. And I think that's pretty awesome. I know they had to use the wrong kind of ship for the Graf Spee, but still, it was. And the captain was the way they portrayed him. He insisted on following all the rules of war and everything. He wound up committing suicide after he found out he'd been duped. Let's see. Where Eagles Dare. I don't blame them. Good. Glad they did. Sheriff Battalion, don't know that one. Cumberland. I think you're right, Garfield. I think you're right. You know what? I'm probably getting confused. I think Cumberland, Achilles, was it Cumberland, Achilles, and Ajax? Or am I confusing that with the ones that went after the Bismarck? Das Boot was a great one, absolutely. Probably the best part about Das Boot is it just showed, I think it gave, and I was just on that submarine up in the, was it U-505? The one up in Chicago Museum of Science and Industry. You guys got to do that if you're up there. But I was... I think it did a real good job portraying life on a U-boat, which was, man, that is not a party boat. Yeah, it was cruiser they used as a graph. That was it. And Das Boot also has that haunting soundtrack, which helps a lot. And by the way, speaking of World War II ships, I was watching again the trailer for the new Godzilla -1, which is post-war, and those ships do have guns on them. But I've got a questionnaire out to a friend of mine, but I think that what I found really impressive, as I talked about, was that looks like they're going through the trouble to try and make really accurate looking machine guns and ships, and I don't know, a lot of it's CGI, so why not? But even the Type 4 tanks, which I thought that's just a nice touch, because I think the Japanese are finally starting to reconnect with their history a little bit and getting more detail oriented. No, it's just a nice touch to add something to it. I mean, I realize it's a Godzilla movie, but if you can, the more you get right, the better the feel of the thing, and the more you get pulled into that universe. That's one of the things about. Oh, I was going to talk about at the live stream and forgot. In the Blue Max, they built from scratch all those airplanes that were used in the movie. But different company, one company couldn't build them all, so they were contracted to different people. Now you'll notice one of the Fokker D7s doesn't have the crankshaft down on the prop mounted to the bottom. It's mounted up on the top of the engine, which is not the way it would have been in a D7. I forget they would have had a Mercedes engine. Anyway. But other than that, the airplane's airframes are pretty accurate. It was the engines that created the problems. They had the Fowls, which is still flying, by the way. It's down in New Zealand in a collection. I saw it recently. And that Fowls from the Blue Max, which is a reproduction, is still, or at least a couple of years ago, was still flying. And, U505 in Chicago. But they said that the D7s are made by two different groups. And, of course, a lot of people notice that even though the triplanes had the radial engines, they weren't Obersels because the engines weren't rotating. It was just, so for those who don't know, those radial engines in World War I, the whole engine spun. And they didn't have a throttle. They had a kill switch to kill the spark, and you could set it for all of them or just some of them. And so that's why you hear them going, bramp, bramp, bramp. And when they would land, they would just cut the engine off and on until it was on the ground. And anyway, the D7s, apparently one of them, and I think it was made by a French contractor, they said they got the airfoil in the upper wing wrong, and the thing was really dangerous to fly, really tricky to fly, had poor handling characteristics, so to be careful with it. And I forget it was the Blue Max or Von Richthofen versus Brown. I knew a lot of the British planes were modified Tiger Moths, but some of them were also Stamps, which is an airplane a little bit like the Jenny. But apparently I think it might have been Von Richthofen versus Brown. There's a photo of a Stamp dressed up as an SE-5 making a pass, and apparently something happened right after the photo was taken. It crashed, and the pilot was killed. So some of these old reproduction airplanes are probably more dangerous than the originals. Now they had, Peter Jackson had the old aircraft company that was making actual nut for rivet copies. Kermit Weeks got a Albatross D3, I think. But there was some scandal down there, and I think that operation has been ceased. Making World War I aircraft is, it's a tricky proposition if you're going to make them accurate. I think what people would be better off to do is make something that from the outside looks just like one, but maybe modernize the other components that you can't see as a concession to safety. But guys like Kermit, they want them and Peter Jackson, they want them as accurate as they can get them, so they get all the flaws the originals had. Well, apparently this D7 was the worst of both worlds. Original design done poorly. Watchers. Johnny Johnson's video on how they use shot. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you see that in the movie Flight of the Phoenix. And, where he's using the cartridges to boom start the engine. I'm going to try one ignition off. Clean out the car. No! And like crap comes flying out of the engine. I think he was right. All right, Mr. Dorfman. Now push. Flight of the Phoenix. Man, that's one of those times that there's no question that, in my humble opinion, that the original was better than the remake. Oh, no, Rob, this is totally impromptu thing. Hey, John, Fast Sports is with us. John, as long as you're here, first off, sorry I haven't written in a while. I wanted to ask you a question about cars, and we were at Fran's last night, and he has an enormous collection of Matchbox and slot cars, and it prompted some question on slot cars, and it got away from me. But he does watch your channel, so it's it's gotten away from me. There was something I was going to ask you, and now it might have been if you were familiar with poker models, but there was a slot car thing that that was Palmer. I was reading something, and they were talking about Palmer the model Palmer cars, and apparently it was in an old 1960s magazine advertisement, I think, and was talking about making the slot cars. And I hadn't heard anything about Palmer cars being used as slot cars. I knew just about everybody else did it, so I guess it shouldn't surprise me. But given that they had such a not so great reputation, I was just wondering if you were all familiar with the Palmer slot cars, or if people were just taking the Palmer bodies and putting them on other electronics. But anyway, so that was the question. All right. Well, Donald Sutherland's best role, oddball. Hey, Moriarty, always with the negative vibes. Every once in a blue moon, and it's one of the nice things about flying with people my own age, I'll fly with somebody, and people in the back, one of the crew members will be complaining in the captain, they're like, "Yeah, Moriarty, always the negative vibes," and I'll crack up, and I'm like the only one on the crew that gets it. Oh, it's a horrible thing. Hey, kid, you're not back in the nut house. Like, what a horrible, stinking, terrible thing to say. I think Oddball's character was created because of when the movie was made. They want to have sort of a hipster to maybe help, connect with the crowd. Somehow his character seems pretty out of place in the early 40s, but who's to say? But he was colorful if nothing else. It's a beautiful tank, man. It's a hunk of chunk. But that paint shell, that paint shells. And that's what the Tiger tank gets for rolling around without infantry support down a crowded road. That scene's not contrived, though, because as a lot of you guys probably already know, there was a time that a Tiger 1 did something like that. And a little freaking American, little six-wheeled armored car with this little 37mm pop gun drove up beside it, popped 3 rounds in the engine, caught it on fire, the crew bailed out, and the little American armored car just went back to his hidey hole and resumed his post. So, okay. Palmer made some of their own molds as well as reboxing some of Monogram's cars. Okay, that makes sense. All right. And hey, KLS&C. I only have a 62 Dodge Dart body, missing one side. Chassis is. A Walk in the Sun. That is for those of you who are not familiar with that movie, that is a kind of surprisingly good movie. And it's very low key compared to a lot of war. You never do find out what happened to the guy on the motorcycle, I don't think. But it's basically just about an infantry squad on a patrol. But that's very character driven. Palmer plastic worth nothing. Yeah, Palmer. Yeah, you don't see too many Palmer Plastics fan clubs. But that fellow was in the business for a long time. He actually came down here to Florida to retire and started another company. He was, of course, he was a plastics company that got into making this as a side gig that was never really his main business. I think, if I remember correct, I'm probably gonna get my numbers wrong, but I think it was Nick Argento that told me that at one point there were like 150 tool and die companies throughout the Midwest and the East Coast that made, had the capability to cut dies or anything, and now it's like 12. I mean, the industry has gone, it's evaporated. And it's one reason there were so many kit model companies before. Of course, now everything's different. You can use the CAD CAM and make more accurate molds and stuff, probably more easily. But there are so few people. If you want to start a kit model company today and cut molds, just finding someone who knows how to do that is almost a lost art. And let's see, what's a good little sleeper war movie, military movie that's like one of those things no one ever mentions. It wasn't a big block, but it was actually a good film. Boys and Company C might be one. There've been a couple of halfway decent indie films. One of the ones that, although I enjoyed it as a movie, but it was very inaccurate, was Richthofen versus Brown or The Red Baron. It's had a couple of different names. And then they made another movie called The Red Baron just a couple of years ago in Europe. And I thought, I had high expectations because with the CGI and everything, they'll be able to do, get everything right. And some of it was okay. Some of it was historically accurate, but some of it was absolute tripe, like where supposedly him and Brown both get shot down and land in the same field and hang out together for a little while before they both walk off. And who dreamed this nonsense up? And I was Catch-22 was an interesting movie, yeah. And as I mentioned before, arguably the most dangerous Hollywood flying stunt ever when they had the whole squadron take off in formation. Because if one of those things had coughed an engine, they would have just piled up on each other. And that, by the way, is not how they launched bombers. In fact, the Palesti raid, the guy was talking about one of the problems taking off of places like Sidi Slimane and these other airfields they had in Libya was that all that sand, the first airplane got up without any trouble, but the sand wouldn't settle very quickly, so everybody would take off through the dust cloud of the previous planes, and it was causing all kinds of fouling and the carbs and everything, and about half those planes, when the B-24 Lady Be Good, the one that was lost in the desert and found in the 60s, they kind of made the movie, the made-for-TV film Soul Survivor, loosely based on that incident. Anyway, about half that group aborted and came out. I think they were bombing Naples, which in itself was kind of a crime. But half that group had aborted for engine troubles and problems because the desert is just horrible on anything mechanical. The Lies of Others. Whale Boats. Yeah, Jeff Chandler. That was a good one. Oh, Dark Blue World. Yeah, now there's a good movie. I actually had that on VHS. Dark Blue World is about Czech pilots flying in the RAF. And made on a very tight budget, but very well done. Didn't need the whole romantic triangle, but it's a movie. But still, it was, and it showed how they got treated after the war. Thank you for helping save us from the Nazis. Now go back to your home country, where, by the way, you'll be chucked in jail by the communists for being westernized. Tamper lever. Yeah, he killed certain soldiers, right. Palmer had some nice kits and some bad, very inconsistent. A movie that's pretty good is the old original Dawn Patrol with Errol Flynn and British actor. God, I can't believe it. Oh, God, Around the World in 80 Days. David Niven. And the Monarch of the Palmer based on the story. Okay. Slaughterhouse 5, The Keep, Castle Keep, yeah. There was, what was it, Anzio? I don't think that was a very good movie. The German Super Cub reconnaissance plane, they didn't bother to repaint. They literally took a civilian Super Cub, white with the red stripes and everything, and just put black crosses on the wings. Like, oh, God. Hey, Daniel. Wackiest Ship in the Navy was a fun one. Yeah. And they made a TV show. I may be wrong. I think the movie was The Wackiest Ship in the Army, and the TV show was The Wackiest Ship in the Navy, but don't quote me on that. Defense Firebase Gloria. Yeah, there's kind of a forgotten movie. Operation Petticoat. We sank a truck! The best line. One time, the smooth and suave Cary Grant lost his cool. And gosh, you know who they need to make a submarine movie about was Fluky, and some of you guys already know who I'm talking about. He went on to be an admiral, and I know with a name like Fluky or Flucky, however you say it, it's a name that makes you laugh to say. But the guy was just one of the greatest submarine commanders in naval history, and he has the distinction. He and his crew have the distinction of having conducted, I think, the only commando raid on Japan proper, and they blew up a railroad bridge and destroyed the train. And they did a lot of other cool stuff too. But that guy was an out-of-the-box thinker. You don't even need to embellish their accomplishments. They really do speak for themselves. There's the submarine movie that should be made. Paths of Glory. Yes. Kirk Douglas has one of the best lines in the history of cinema. And I believe it is, there are times when I'm sad to be a member of the human race, or something like that. But Paths of Glory, you're a sadistic old man. God, that movie is so well done. Almost a film noir. Ralph Meeker's best work too. And for those who haven't seen it, that's a must watch. That shows you that a soldier has more than one enemy, and it really touched on the dark side of humanity. I laugh at you like I would the village idiot. Sisu, we saw that. That's basically John Wick World War II. Down Periscope. Oh, I loved it. Down Periscope's one of my favorite movies. Well, sir, what do you think your new command? I'd have a better chance on the Merrimack. Somebody shoot Buckman on a torpedo tube. Oh God, I love that movie. That was a good comedy. Oh, I know one. Buckman. Yeah. Was it White Tiger? And by the way, I know they just dressed up a Russian tank. They actually did have a full-scale, very accurate mock-up of a Tiger 1 made for the movie. But the people who did it didn't get it done in time, so they had to use that mocked-up thing they had. And that's a shame, because it would have been better. In the Mark IV, they blew up, really looked accurate. But that tank, once they finally did get it finished, it actually went up for sale on eBay for $500,000. So for $500,000, you could have yourself an operating look-alike Tiger 1. I assume some Hollywood group probably bought it. Yeah, Predator, get to the chopper. Yep. Oh, yeah, Garfield, you and I are thinking the same thing. You said it just as a instant pulver, just threw your stinking palm tree overboard. Yeah. That movie's good for showing an aspect of the military that people don't think about, and that's the guys who do the grunt work in the background that, is just boring, and they fight tedium all day long. George C. Scott did a great job in Patton. He really did. Enemy Below, yep. 1941, yeah. Ba-da-bum, 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 bum. How many more like him do you think are up there? Yeah. There have been some really good ones. It helps when you have a director who's got a little bit of a budget, who has a genuine interest. I mean, Spielberg goes out of his way to try to get an authentic look. You make something as expansive as the Band of Brothers, you're going to make a couple of mistakes, like the C-47 that takes off, and as it goes by, you realize the pilot's wearing lime green David Clark headsets, but oh well. But the music was outstanding, the visuals and everything. It was just, very well done. I need a tennis shot just for looking at it, sir. Well, Marty, what do you think of our new boat? Is there anything I can do to make matters worse? No, I think we're pretty well covered. Whoops. Oh, what price glory? James Cagney, Marines in World War I. Oh, somebody's making Panzerkampfwagen 3s, like you do. The Eagle has landed, yeah. Apparently, I don't know how true it is, but I saw one of these history videos that says the incident where he puts the girl on the train and saves her from the SS, although they wound up shooting her anyway. But that actually was based on something that actually happened for real. So, Valkyrie, the movie with Tom Cruise where he plays von Stauffenberg, that was a pretty good movie. Except for where he's, the shootout in the hallway, which never happened, but it was pretty spot on. The Dirty Dozen, yeah. Empire of the Sun, oh my God, that scene where he's on top of the building, the Mustangs are strafing. Cadillac, this guy's just airplane porn. God, I love that scene. That's exactly how that's, a lot of people don't realize that's Batman. That was young Christian Bale. And I'll tell you, that's exactly how I would have acted if I'd been that kid on that rooftop. Dunkirk was good. Not perfect, but good. Lee Marvin hated The Dirty. He said he only did it for the money. I'm sure he did. It was a very unrealistic movie. The Dirty Dozen is fun military fantasy, but it's not at all in any way accurate, because there is no way on God's green earth that they would ever take a bunch of, psychopaths like that and do what they did in the movie. It was pure Hollywood all the way. And that movie has been credited as the birth of the Hollywood anti-hero, that where the bad guy who's a good guy or the good guy who's a bad guy kind of anti-hero thing became inculcated. But it was a very successful movie at the box office, and I think one of the reasons why, you got to remember, it came out during the height of the Vietnam War, and Major Reisman was a very anti-establishment character, which is probably why it appealed to a lot of younger people. Yeah, and Harm's Way the writing is good, but the whole toy ship thing, and they look like toy ships. And I don't mean models, they look like toys. I actually saw one of the models from In Harm's Way at a Planet Hollywood. It was ironically, had a destroyer hanging from the ceiling. And even looking at it, was a very low fidelity model, just carved out of wood. It was not impressive. And normally I'm a huge fan of Hollywood models. Stalag 17, William Holden. And okay, here's the knife. Just make sure you stick it in the right guy. He actually slapped the crap out of Peter Graves in that scene too, though. I don't think he meant to, but they said, fortunately they did it in one take. But when he slaps him, he knocked the snot out of him. 1917, that was good. Wake Island, it's good but sad. And Saber, yeah. The Hunters. I've heard a lot of people, the Hunters, there's no way he's ejecting a perfectly good airplane just to make a point. Like I told you, I'm a killer. Masters of the Air, I'm looking forward to that. I have high hopes for it. That other one about the B-17 that was escorted by the Messerschmitt pilot, I think they're making that one also. Oh, I'm sorry to hear about that, Roy. Enemy at the Gate, pretty good. It certainly did not it did justice to the Russian front. Yeah, Bridge over the River Kwai. That's a movie. That movie's a classic for a reason. I love William Holden's character. He was always playing a guy with an angle. He's like, I told him he was an officer just because he saw the enlisted men's ward. Yep, Peter Graves and James Ernest are brothers. Bat 21, not a bad movie. I read the book before I saw the movie, and that helped. Enemy at the Gates, like I say, did a great job of showing the Russian front the way it was. Have you seen Devotion? I've seen part of it. I know the actual story. It's a good story, and makes you realize that flying Corsairs wasn't any, in Korea was hardly a walk in the park. Air Force, yep. A very cheesy story. Memphis Belle was okay. Some of the model work was a little subpar, I think. When I saw it at theater, I didn't mind. I look at it now. Some of the model work doesn't age quite that well. Tropic Thunder, yeah. That was a funny movie. I love Tom Cruise's character in that, though. When the guy tries to make demands, he just, I'll rip your head off, and throws the phone away. And, little Asian terrorist is like, somebody speaking his language. And I don't know. I think Tropic Thunder is more of a needle to Hollywood than anything else, and one they rightfully. I love when they skewer themselves. Dam Busters is great. Fighter Squadron's okay. Cross of Iron had Corsair sort of. Okay, didn't see that. Oh yeah, that's one thing on The Longest Day, a great movie about the Normandy invasion. but they used some stock footage, and I'm like, yeah, they wish they had Sky Raiders. Okay. Yeah, War Lover. Bridges at Toko-Ri has been considered by many people to be the best anti-war movie ever made. And, Inglourious Bastards is, again, the Tarantino verse. It's sort of just violence porn based in World War II. But I got to admit, it's a very entertaining movie. And in the end, movies are entertainment. Steiner! Where's Steiner? Stripes. Yeah. Stripes was actually filmed at Fort Knox, where I did my basic training. And when the bus comes into the reception station, that's the very reception station that I went into in 1979. You'll notice the phone booth behind it. That's where I used to call home from. I think we should call Sergeant Hulk our big toe. Well, Wenger, you best straighten up, or Sergeant Hulk is going to see how far he can shove his big toe up your ass. The Man Who Never Was, true story. Bridget Raymogan, it's okay. Good, I'm glad they told the story. And I think that's the first place the M26 Pershing really came into its own. It got some good slugs in there. Monuments Men was interesting, and apparently reasonable telling of the story, too. Downfall was good. Downfall was classic. And yeah, First Blood came out at the right time also. Kelly's Hero it definitely had a lot of good one-liners. Torpedo Run, Glenn Ford. No Time for Sergeants. That was Andy Griffith and Don Knotts did that as this Broadway stage play before the movie was made. And Andy Griffith, who apparently had a reputation for being pretty loyal to his friends, he had worked with Knotts on the play, and he wanted to make sure that Knotts got a role in the movie. And so he's the one, Knotts is the one giving the IQ test with the rings and everything. And it was a small part, but it was important because it got Knotts on film and everything. And when he later did the Andy Griffith Show, he had to fight to get Don Knotts cast as a deputy. I think they wanted somebody else. And when Knotts, as I understand it, when he later got the offer to do the movies for Disney, I mean, he'd have to quit the Andy Griffith Show, which is why they brought in, I think it was Jack Burns later on. And he felt real bad about that. And he went and talked to Andy about it. And Andy was, apparently, Griffith was completely understanding. He said, Don, this is your career. I'm not going to hold you back. You've done a great job for several seasons. And, we wish you well. So he released Knotts to go do his Disney films. And he wound up doing The Incredible Mr. Limpet. I'm sure you guys remember that one. I watched that as a kid a couple of times. It would come on Friday nights, and I never missed it. And, wound up having quite the career before he became Mr. Furley. The Bedford Incident, the Cane Mutiny. Jose Ferrer was perfect in the Cane Mutiny. Oh, Klinger made Jamie Farr. Yeah, people forget how old Jamie Farr is. He's been around all long. James B. Seeking, who you would know as Lieutenant Howard Hunter in Hill Street Blues. He was in Von Ryan's Express as one of the POWs. And I was like, man, did that guy not age or something? Yes, that's right. He had Knotts on Matlock later on. That's exactly right. In fact, he became a semi-regular, I think, the last season or so. And, Knotts had a reputation as being quite the gentleman. And not only that, also, although he divorced, because he got very stressed out, he was very prone to stress, Knotts also was very much a GQ dresser and was, believe it or not, he was quite the ladies' man. Although, ironically, he was very miscast in a movie about that where he was, supposed to be some kind of swinger or something. It was just bad casting because that wasn't his public image. But in private, he was actually quite suave and debonair and always dressed to the nines. And it was just interesting how his on-screen, off-screen personas couldn't have been more different. But definitely, everybody says he was quite the gentleman. Griffith had a pretty good... The Pianist, that's a surprisingly good movie. Griffith had a good reputation also, but when he did that movie A Face in the Crowd, and I think it was Pray for the Hellcats, he played villains from time to time. And man, the fact that he had that Family Guy reputation, but when he played villains, he was just terrifying in them. Just like one of the most terrifying characters ever put to film. was Orson Welles, and it was A Touch of Evil. I mean, his character was just spine-chilling. And it didn't even have to be, for Mr. Furley, it didn't even have to be, supernatural. Just the fact that people like that really exist. Doctor Strangelove. That is one of my favorite movies. And you guys probably already know this, but George C. Scott refused to work with Stanley Kubrick after that movie because Scott was a chess player. And Kubrick learned that with Scott, you couldn't just tell him because, he was a very forceful individual. Not above taking a swing at somebody, apparently. And a pretty heavy drinker. Or so goes the legend. But anyway... So what he would do is he would play chess, and apparently Kubrick was an excellent chess player, and he was able to beat Scott. He said, look, I'll make you a deal. We'll play chess, and if I win, you do it my way. Okay, and he won. And what he said was, okay, we're going to do one real dark, then we're going to do a warm-up, and then I want you to do one kind of goofy to get out of your system, and then we'll come back. And when he found out that Kubrick had wanted the funny version all along, but Scott wanted to play it true straight, but he just did it to, sort of placate it, and that he actually used the goofy ones, which is ironic because he's one of the best characters in the movie, but apparently he was furious. And, well, maybe not furious, but I'll never work with that guy again. So take that for what it's worth. But we got General Buck Turgison. Yeah. Big Jill like a beefy-doo, down low, fried chickens in the barnyard. Can they get through? Hell yeah. Oh my God, that movie just cracks me up. Gentlemen, there's no fighting in the war room. Full Metal Jacket, good movie. Don't know if I've seen Escape to Athens, not sure. Dogs of War, yeah, about mercenaries. Pretty good. I think the Dogs of War was for mercenaries, though, about what like the movie Grand Prix was for racing. I think it was Steve McQueen and James Garner. Of course, Garner, who had been in the Army and had been wounded in Vietnam, there's another veteran for you. And Garner actually massaged that into his Rockford Files character. Jim Rockford was I think supposed to be a Korean War veteran. And, you get guys like that together who've all served and some have seen combat. It really helps with just a little minutia of the way Garner did a great job in The Great Escape, which is a good movie, but the only problem I have with The Great Escape, and it's not a big complaint. I like Steve McQueen's character, Captain Hildebrand, but there were no, if I'm not mistaken, there were no Americans in The Great Escape. That was all British, Canadian, UK thing. But they felt they needed an American for the American audience, so they stuck his character in there. Which, frankly, although he was a colorful character, I don't think he had to be there. Let's see. Deer Hunter is a joke. Yeah, that movie was an interesting movie, but in a world of its own. Well, anyway, guys. Well, I'm going to wrap up. Main thing I wanted to point out is that the links in the description, I'm glad to say that they found the 3-foot Enterprise, and it's apparently going back to the Roddenberry estate, but they're going to have somebody do go watch that video. It's about 15-20 minutes long. Guy really did his research on Trek World, but I'm glad they finally recovered it because that's been a nerd mystery for a long time. It's kind of like finding the Amelia Earhart of missing Hollywood props. Well, I will let you guys run, and I'll keep this up for a little while so that you guys can chat with each other. And also we'll be online for another 10 or 15 minutes. Well, take care of yourselves, guys. Hope you're having a great evening. Thanks for coming out and spending some time with me. Let me gab. Talk to you later. As always, hold on.
Passenger, and I ride and I ride. I ride through the city's backside. I see the stars come out of the sky. Yeah, the bright and hollow sky. You know it looks so good tonight. I am the passenger. I stay under glass. I look through my window so bright. I see the stars come out tonight. I see the bright and hollow sky. Over the city's ripped back sky. And everything looks good tonight. Singing la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Get into the car. We'll be the passenger. We'll ride through the city tonight. See the city's ripped back sides. We'll see the bright and hollow sky. We'll see the stars that shine so bright. The sky was made for us tonight. Oh, the passenger, how he rides. Oh, the passenger, he rides and he rides. He looks through his window. What does he see? He sees a silent hollow sky. He sees the stars come out tonight. He sees the city's ripped back sides. He sees a winding ocean drive. And everything was made for you and me. All of it was made for you and me. 'Cause it just belongs to you and me. So let's take a ride and see what's mine. Singing la 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 la. Oh, the passenger, he rides and he rides. He sees things from under glass. He looks through his window's eyes. He sees the things he knows.
Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien. Ni le bien qu'on m'a fait, ni le mal, tout ça m'est bien égal. Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien. C'est payé, balayé, oublié. Je me fous du passé. Avec mes souvenirs, j'ai allumé le feu. Mes chagrins, mes plaisirs, je n'ai plus besoin de balayer les amours avec leur trémolo, balayer pour toujours. Je repars à zéro. Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien. Ni le bien qu'on m'a fait, ni le mal, tout ça m'est bien égal. Non, rien de rien. Non, je ne regrette rien, car ma vie